Right. All right, everybody, what's up? It's Tiny Housin, volume 37, I guess. Something like that. Just got back from my 40-mile bicycle commute, and I'm a bit tired. So, I got a lot of work to do. As you can see, I got a lot of cold brew coffee awaiting me. I got some cookies from the bakery waiting for me. I got a bunch of clean clothes to put away. And, just one more day of this crazy bike ride. And one more day of this crazy bike ride, and then I get to take a break and chill. And then one more day of the craziness, and then 3 days to figure things out. Oh, I'll talk to you in a bit. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Adam. Sometimes I wake up like this. I have a little bit of a nightlight up on the wall there, just so I can have a dim light, and I'm gonna sit here and chill for half an hour before I start getting ready for the miserable experience that awaits me. There's a huge rainstorm just south of Houston, with the winds pushing it up into our area, and it's been sitting there since yesterday, since more than 24 hours now. And it doesn't look like it's going anywhere over the next 24. But I do notice that it looks like it's going to rain like crazy, but as the arms or the bands of the storm reach up towards Houston and north of Houston, it kind of dissipates. So we can expect it to rain for the next... It's supposed to rain. It rained all day yesterday, off and on. I was expecting it to downpour last night, and it never did. We're supposed to expect nothing but rain today and tomorrow, and I have to cycle to the bakery both days. And it's supposed to rain all day Sunday, which if it's a downpour on Sunday, forget going to church. In fact, if it's a downpour on Sunday, I might take a full down day, like just a full day to do nothing, like literally sit in a recliner here and watch TV on a laptop and do as close to nothing as I can do. Not 100% sure about that, but because I have to do it all again on Monday, it might be beneficial. And if I do have a down day like that, I'll probably end up getting some sort of church. But there was a meme today that I saw, and I was just talking about the food desert in Jamestown and how that relates to food stamps, and why the government is starting to allow people to use food stamps for things like McDonald's and pizza. And it's because there's so many of these neighborhoods and areas where you literally just can't go grocery shopping anymore because there's nowhere to go. And this meme was like this circular image of, oh, a new grocery store opened in town. I'm going to shoplift the shit out of this place. And then the third image is, Why do I live in a food desert? Like, because the grocery store went out of business. And a new grocery store opens in town. And it's just a circular, it repeats itself. New grocery store opens in town. I can't wait to rob the shit out of this place. Grocery store goes out of business. Why do I live in a food desert? And just repeat, repeat, repeat. And it instantly reminded me of Target over here. And I've talked about this every time I go grocery shopping at Target. This Target is the most whack-ass ghetto Target I've ever seen. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. It's bad. And when I go to pay for my the funny thing is, the guy with the big giant backpack, the big outdoor adventure backpack, is probably the only one paying for his groceries. Ironically, this is probably why. But none of these stores care when I go in. I've always wondered, is anybody gonna call me out and tell me I can't bring this giant bag into the store? I have yet to have an issue with it. And that's fine. I'm glad. Like, that's good for me. Less hassle, less bullshit to deal with. But to be honest, the bag is completely empty when I go into the store. So if somebody were to ask me to leave it at a front counter, I wouldn't even care. I would just take it off, leave it at the front counter, go do my thing. And I'm pushing around a shopping cart, so if I had to put the stuff back in the bag, so be it. Wouldn't really make a big difference to me. But none of these big stores care. I don't know what the grocery store... There's a grocery store I haven't tried yet. But it's a 2-mile walk each way. So it's kind of like an outlier. And I'm not sure about this one. So in the meantime, every time I go grocery shopping at Target, as I've said, there's a huge line for the self-checkout. I'm talking like there'll be 20 or more carts, people rolling, overflowing carts, a line of 20 people waiting in line for a self-checkout machine, of which they have 6 to 10 self-checkout machines, but there will still be a huge line of people waiting for them. People waiting. The line, you're going to be waiting half an hour to ring up your own groceries. And there will be 3 or 4 cashiers in the regular lines with nobody waiting in line. And for me, I'm like, fine, fuck it. I'm going to go, I'm going to get right out of here. Won't have to ring up my own groceries. That's awesome. Especially if you've got a full cart of groceries. And I'm thinking to myself, the only explanation that makes any sense for this is theft. All these motherfuckers are waiting in line for the self-checkout so that they can steal half of the items in their cart. And so after I read that meme, it triggered that thought in my head again, like reminded me of what I see there. And I thought it was hilarious. And so I typed this in to see if this is like an actual... I already know this is what's going on. And Target's not going to do anything about it. They're not going to confront anybody about it. They're not going to do anything to try and stop it. You know, this is the same woke Target that allows grown men to go into the little girl's bathroom so that they can try and catch a peek at some little girl's pee holes. And, you know, they're not doing anything about that. So they're obviously not going to do anything to stop people from robbing them. And so I read a couple of articles in the news of the different techniques that they use to steal at the self-checkout. And so one thing that people will do is go and find barcodes for items that are much cheaper than the things that they're buying but weigh about the same, and then they'll either peel and stick a barcode from something with a similar weight to the item that they're trying to steal, and then scan that barcode and put the item that they're stealing on the scale in the shopping bag so that the machine doesn't say it's a mismatch on the weight. And there's like 10 other ways that they go about stealing. And they've all got nicknames. All the techniques have got ghetto nicknames of like the loop-de-loop and the hiddly-hoo or whatever. Like there's a whole bunch of, look this up. I don't know what the nickname, I don't give a shit what they are because I'm not doing it. So I don't got time for that. It's, even though it's like an open invitation to get half of my groceries for free, it's not, even if I wasn't on federal probation, it's not something I'm interested in doing. It's just not who I am. But, like, and it's like the Target at the neighborhood where the bakery is, that's right next to the bakery I work at, that you don't see this going on there. This is a nice Target. It's clean. Everything's labeled. Everything on the shelf has a price. It's like the exact opposite of the Target where I live. Like it's literally two opposite ends of where I live to where the other Target. There's a Target and a Target. Where I live, there's one, and I pass it every day right when I leave to go to work, and there's one right where I work that I pass every time I go to work. And they could not be more opposite ends of the spectrum from each other in terms of everything. The one where I work is actually a decent place to go, and there's never any lines for the self-checkout. So if I ever went in there after work to buy one or two things, I could come make a beeline straight for the self-checkout, bloop, bloop, done, and I'm out the door. I don't have to wait in line. But the Target where I live, if you want a self-checkout, you're waiting in line for half an hour to ring up your own groceries. And when all's said and done, I think it's hysterical. I think it's hysterical because all of these grocery stores that are trying to save costs by firing cashiers, that you go to Walmart and you've got 150 checkout lines and you've got 2 cashiers ringing up groceries, and they're trying to force you to ring up your own groceries and to bag your own groceries, and basically they're trying to force you to do their job. And now they're losing millions of dollars in revenue because so many people, there's just lines and lines and lines of people who are there to steal groceries from them. And at the end of the day, I'm like, that's fucking hilarious. Like, I support this. I mean, I'm not going to do it myself, but I can't say I'm opposed to what's going on because it serves them right that they're, if they didn't have all these self-checkout lines, if they weren't trying to force people to bag their own groceries and force people to ring up their own groceries and, do the job of the supermarket just so that the supermarket can save a little bit of money over having to pay cashiers, then I think it's fucking hilarious that instead of saving money by not hiring cashiers or by getting rid of cashiers, they're actually losing millions and millions of dollars because people are using that to scam them and to steal from them. So, way to go, Target. You guys, Target, Walmart, the grocery stores, all of you people trying to save a buck by getting rid of jobs and by making your customers do your job for you, it's turning around to bite you in the ass. And some of you are going to go out of business because of it. It would not surprise me in the least if this Target down the street here were to close at some point. Just because they're not even making a profit due to the fact that one out of every two items that leaves the store isn't being paid for. So, but at the same time, I think it's hilarious, and I'm not going to live in this neighborhood forever. But, maybe that's a sign. This is a handy tip. If you're looking to move and you want to see, because this neighborhood, if it wasn't for the main street that I live on, if I lived in one of the back streets here, it would look like a really nice upscale neighborhood that's quiet. And you don't have to go far from the main street that I'm on where all the noise is and all the traffic is. You can go like 3 blocks behind this house, and it's a very tranquil, peaceful feeling, upscale neighborhood. But if you want to get a feel for whether your neighborhood is worth moving to or not, go to the local grocery store, go to the local Target, go to the local Walmart, and take note of how many people are in the self-checkout line versus the regular lines, and how full are the grocery carts that are going through the self-checkout line, and are the cashier lines empty with nobody waiting to check out their groceries. I think that's a good sign on what kind of quality you can expect from the neighborhood you're about to move into. Because I'm telling you, the 2 different Targets that I walk into on a regular basis could not be more different from each other. They may as well just have a different name on the sign, because they are not the same store. And with that, I'm just going to let you go. Peace out. It's your boy Adam. It's Tiny Housin, Volume 37. And like I said, I'm just going to record when I feel like recording, which is usually right after I get out of bed and I'm trying to wake up to the world. And towards the end of the day, basically when I'm down and out because I have no more energy, that's when you're going to hear from me, because I need to fit it into a schedule in some way, but I still have to be productive and get other things done. So I'm going to try to, even if I build up a stockpile of videos, instead of stringing them all together into a 5-hour marathon, I'm just going to separate them by the topic. So the last video that you saw was me talking about that. I think I talked a little bit about the cycling stuff, and I showed you the water bottles that I've chosen to collect to store potable water with, filtered water with, for now. I'm on a budget of pretty much nothing, and one of the things I did look into yesterday, I'll continue where I left off with that for a minute, but I do have a topic for today's video. After I talked about the orange juice bottles, the 46-ounce Tropicana orange juice bottles being very good in terms of storing water. They're not as big as a 2-liter pop bottle, but I'm not drinking soda anymore, so I don't have a reason to collect them. One thing I wanted to look into was if I get some milk crates from Amazon so that I can stack milk crates. For more than one reason. I have a little bit of a cupboard space. There's this, you can kind of see over here, right there next to the refrigerator. It has all those. I had to do my I had to do my bottled coffee this morning. When I got up at 6 in the morning and got the cold brew in the fridge because I forgot to do it last night, which means I can filter that out and have it ready to go at about 8 or 9 o'clock tonight, which is good because tomorrow I have to ride my bicycle at 6:30 in the morning, and it's pouring rain right now, and this rainstorm is supposed to continue all day today, all night tonight, and all day tomorrow. So there's a chance. I don't know how much I'm going to get rained on when I cycle tomorrow, but I'm going to be riding 40 miles. I have to plan on 40 miles with wet feet and soaking wet clothes. Not looking forward to that, but it's part of, if you're going to get into the cycling game and do it, if you're going to do this, that's part of that goes with it. That's part of the game. So, doesn't mean I have to like it, but it's part of the game. So one of the things I wanted to find for storing water and food, that little cabinet I just pointed out, it doesn't hold a lot of food. Now, I've gone grocery shopping every week since I've been in this tiny house, so I have built up a supply of food, and generally speaking, I could probably skip a week of grocery shopping and I'm not going to starve. I have plenty of stuff to eat. So that it does feel nice that I have, the first week I lived in this place, I couldn't even drink water except I had one bottle with a filter in it, and it was really like hard to drink water out of because the nature of the filter in the bottle, it's like drinking a McDonald's milkshake. Trying to get the milkshake to come through the straw, that's what it's like to drink water out of this bottle. And I was so glad to have that bottle because it saved my ass for the first week or so in this house till I could get myself a water filtration system. But water was definitely an issue. Just water. And I didn't have much to eat, and I didn't even have a way to boil water. I was pretty desolate. And so now that I have some water and some food, I'm thinking that a few milk crates, you can buy them on Amazon. They're standard milk crates, the ones that I've seen. Unfortunately, I have a lot of experience dealing like the different types and styles of milk crates due to working in a prison kitchen. We had a lot of milk crates laying around. Some were stronger than others, so I know what to look for. The ones on Amazon that I have bookmarked, I'm confident will be some solid milk crates. And they're stackable. And so what I'm thinking is, if I got 3 of them, that would give me a little bit more room to store some food, maybe some food in the top 2 and water in the bottom 1, and I could stack 3, maybe 6 of them. And, I don't even really know where I'd put them right now because as I look around the tiny house, space is tight. But I measured that the standard size milk crates with those orange juice bottles can hold probably 9 bottles, and I'd have 1.5 inches clearance on either side. The milk crate's usable space is, I believe it's 12 inches by 12 inches, the width and length. Well, it's a square, so it's 12 by 12, however tall they are. I don't remember how tall they are. The bottles are 3.5, 3.6 inches wide. So you can get 3 by 3, 46-ounce bottles, but they're going to fit in there loose. They're not going to fit tight and snug like 6 glass. Those things are designed to hold 6 glass milk bottles, half-gallon milk bottles. If I had lots and lots of glass milk bottles, I would probably maybe store some water in those. But the point of using plastic is that glass breaks. If glass gets frozen, it's going to break. If you drop glass, it's going to break. These bottles, especially these orange juice bottles, The caps fit really tight and snug. They have a rubber seal, and the plastic is the design of the bottle and the type of plastic that it uses will withstand being thrown against a tree. I already know they will perform about the same as a 2 liter pop bottle. So I'm going to switch out all of the bottles that I currently have stockpiled. I have one. So to do 2 gallons of cold brew coffee, I used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least. No, it looks like 5 or 6 48-ounce coffee bottles. The cold brew coffee bottles that I had filled with water. I used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, either 5 or 6 of those just this morning to fill the containers that are going in the fridge for the cold brew system. So I definitely need a little bit of water set aside just for things like that. If I need a few gallons of water for something, it's good to have. Ultimately, I want to have 50 gallons, but I don't have, if I really wanted to get down and fill every nook and cranny of available space in the tiny house, I could probably do that. I could probably even store some outside. I could find a place for that, but I'm really not, a tiny house means tiny living. So having 10 gallons of water as a reserve would not be bad for now, living in this tiny little place. Having a water filter, a gravity water filter, means that no matter how bad things get in terms of the shit hits the fan, I'm still going to be able to find water that I can filter. I also have 3 other water filter. I have at least 3 or 4 other ways to filter water. So believe me, if I need to, I already walk a mile to go get groceries. I can walk to a water source if it came down to that. Worst case scenario and the world just falls apart. I should be able to be okay with water for now. Food, another story. But, so that's what I'm working on there. The topic I wanted to talk about, now that I'm 10 minutes into this video, is the book of Job in the Bible. And the reason why this is popping up with me right now is there are a lot of synchronicities with the book of Job and my situation. And I don't remember, I really couldn't even list them all, but while I was in prison, the book of Job was a really important book. It was a really important thing for me. It's kind of where I started my journey on rereading the Bible. And at one point, I finally got to the point where I'm in prison. I got nothing to do. I've got nothing but time. It was around Christmas, the first Christmas that I spent in jail after my arrest. About a week before Christmas, I decided to read the Bible from cover to cover. And so I did that, and I forget how many months it took, but it took some time. It wasn't like I read other things, but I read the Bible every single day. But when I was first arrested, I ended up in, the FBI tortured me for the first week or so, and then that stopped, and they put me in a general population pod. Is what they call them, pods, in the jail. And so now I'm surrounded by people. There's, we can play cards, you can kind of watch TV, but it's so loud. People are so loud and obnoxious in jail that you can't hear anything that's on the TV, but you can see it. It's ridiculous. So, like, you can watch a football game because you don't really need to hear it. That's about it. Um, and part of that being in the general population, I was a lot the different groups, different Christian pastors and groups of people would come in to do Bible studies. And so I didn't know about this at first. This is all new to me. I would say within the first day, I think it was probably the second day that I was on a cell block with other people. A group of Catholics came in and said that there was a Bible study, and I said, it sounded like something told me that, hey, you should go. Well, I was the only one who showed up to the Bible study, so it was just me, a Catholic deacon of some kind, and another woman from the local church. And they could tell I was in a bad place. And so they asked about me, like they wanted to know what happened. How did you end up in here and all that? And I told them the story, and they were just like floored by this. Like that's not what they expected to hear. I can tell you that. Well, I said some mean things on Twitter, and the FBI showed up at my house with a tank, and the whole story was, they were just like they were expecting to hear, well, I got caught with a bag of meth. That the typical, they were thinking about the typical story, and then they hear my story, they're like, whoa. And, I told them about how I'm losing everything. Like, I was in the process of losing everything at that point. Everything in my house was I lost everything. And I was in a really bad place. Mentally, everything. And I just remember the one woman, she says, you should probably sit down and read the book of Job. Because he lost everything. And, we had this conversation. And I said, yeah, I'll do that. And, I don't know if I kept like a little jail journal, where I was just counting the days that I was in there and anything that would happen of significance. And I don't mean like inmate stuff. I mean like things that were spiritually significant, or things about my case, or just different things of that nature. I would just make a note of it. And I did this the entire 600 days I was in there, and I have it. It's in my desk right here, the stack of papers. So I basically have a log of everything that happened from day one to the end. And there was just one thing that was, I can name a few of these things, but if I went through this journal and captured all of it, along with the dates and how frequent this happened, the book of Job would pop up in the most weird, synchronistic ways that you can imagine. One of those, I'm gonna randomly I'm just gonna share a couple of them. When I started to read the book of Job, I got my hands on a Bible at some point. I don't even remember when. I started to read the book of Job, and it wasn't for me at that moment in time. The book of Job is basically tells the story of how God and the devil had a conversation, and the devil said, look, if the only reason Job praises you is because you've given him everything he ever wanted in his life. He has all these flocks of animals, he has all these kids, he's the richest man in the land of Uz, or wherever he lives, and he's got it all. But if you took everything away that he had, he would curse you. And so God's like, you want to bet? God took everything away from him. And Job never cursed God. Job got mad. Job basically did all the same stuff I'm doing in these videos. He complained a lot. He was upset. He felt like, he even felt like God hated him. And, there were times where that happened. When I started reading the book of Job, I couldn't do it. It just wasn't hitting it for me. Because the very beginning of the book of Job tells the story about how Job lost everything, and it's pretty short. And the very end of the book of Job is how Job got everything back, and everything was restored, and he ended up getting back more than he lost. Like God blessed him more than the second. It says the latter days of Job were more blessed than the former days. But that big chunk in the middle is basically a conversation between Job and all his friends. And it's basically just Job being a whiny bitch. Whining about how he lost everything. He's got boils all over his skin. His health is down in the toilet. His wife's like, your breath stinks. You smell bad. Why don't you just curse God and die? Like, his wife was a piece of shit. Go figure. His wife was mad that they lost everything, and she was like, why don't you just curse God and die? And by the way, your breath stinks, and you smell like shit, and you're ugly. But when I was first trying to sit down with the Bible, the book of Job is not the best read. Just not gonna lie, it's not a great. It's mostly 90% of that book is the conversation between Job and his friends and the people. And it gets a little bit tedious. But I have read the book of Job 3 or 4 times now since then. But the book of Job would keep coming up in Bible studies and different synchronicities. I'm just going to share the ones that stand out in my head, but there are so many of them that it would be very difficult to collect them all and share them all in this video right here. The first one that stands out to me was, this is hard. Some of this stuff's hard to talk about, but my ex and I, we would talk. We would do a video chat. They had these kiosks on the wall, and you could pay a ridiculous amount of money to talk for 15 minutes or a half hour with a video camera. And so my ex and I, we could talk to each other a few times a week. And we wanted to we were gonna read some books. Like, she was sending me a couple of books, and then she was gonna read the books so that we could just have something to talk about. But obviously, when you're in jail, you got a lot more time to read a book than someone out in the world who's working. Believe me, I have two Bibles. I have a book that I was reading when I left prison. I took the book with me. I have not read one page of that book since the day I got home. It's Ken Follett. It's one of the Ken Follett Kingsbridge series books. I can't even read the title from where I'm sitting, but I liked all of his books, and I'm reading this one, but since I got home, I haven't picked it up to read it. The world, being out in the world, in prison, I read over 200 books. I had written them. I wrote down every title and author, but for some reason, in my stack of papers that I brought home from all of this nonsense, the first 100 or something books that I read, that piece of paper that I wrote all that stuff down on is gone. I don't know. Maybe it got confiscated by the prison guards when I sent some stuff home. So, but I read over 200 books while I was away for 20 months. I could read a book in 2 days. In some cases, I could read a 500-page book in a single day because when you're locked in a tiny little cage for 24 hours a day, and they open up the door to throw a tray of food at you and slam the door shut 3 times a day, you don't got anything else to do but read a couple books. So the Job coincidences, the Job synchronicities, they were everywhere. Like I said, my ex and I, we thought about doing that thing with the book. Well, instead, what we ended up doing was somebody had this book. Somebody gave me a bunch of books when they got picked up to go to state prison, and you're not allowed to take anything with you when you go from one jail to the next. So everything that you accumulate, everything that you get your hands on when you're in one jail, when they transfer you somewhere else, you don't get to take anything with you. You got to start all over. Every time they transfer you, you're starting over from scratch. And so this dude was getting taken to state prison, and he gave me a stack of books. At which point, I, in turn, when I left to go on my journey through the federal prison system, I handed the stack of books to others. That particular jail in Butler County, another thing that they were doing to torture people was they were making it impossible for inmates to get books. They wouldn't let you have books. It was very difficult. They made it so that you could no longer have books sent to you in the prison. And so you were basically stuck with whatever books were already being passed around by the inmates. And then when they would shake down the cells, if a book was missing a cover or something like that, they would call it contraband and throw it away. And so they were purposely trying to make it so inmates can't even have access to books to read there. That was a big thing. They should be, that place should be, a lot of these jails need to be shut down because of their inhumane treatment of human beings. I don't care what anybody in there did. Nobody deserves to be treated nobody deserves to be starved to death. Nobody deserves to be denied medical care. I saw a guy break his leg, and they gave him an Advil and told him to shut the fuck up. They're denying people to even have books to read. There's so many things about this crooked-ass prison system that I could talk about. And I will, and I do. Watch some of the other videos. I talk about this stuff all the time. But, going back to Job. I'm looking at the clock here, and it's if I don't have notes in front of me, I will just wander around the topic universe, and it's hard for me to stay on track. Book of Job. My ex and I, somebody gave me a book when he was leaving to go to state prison. One of the books was a daily devotional. It was called Streams in the Desert. And so I was reading it. It's just a passage every day. It's kind of like the Jesus Calling book that I read. I don't read it every single day. I don't remember to, but I would say at least 2 or 3 times a week I read it, even now. And there's a website that has all the entries from the book, so I don't even have a physical copy of the book right now. I would like to, but priorities, I guess. If I can read it by typing into Google Jesus Calling and whatever date, and then I can click on a link and read it, it don't matter to me whether I'm reading it on a screen or in a book. So this other book, Streams in the Desert, this was handed to me, and I started reading it, and there were it would give me stuff to talk about, and I told my ex about it. She went out and bought the book, so that when we would talk on our video chats, we would be talking about, what we read in the book today. And it was something that wasn't the only thing we would talk about, but it was just something that we could both read on a daily basis. And when we talked to each other, we could talk about that. And so I skipped ahead, and because I had a sentencing date It was October 4th of 2023 that I was getting sentenced. I was going to find out on that day what my sentence is going to be. Whether I'm going to go home that day or whether I'm going to go up the river to break rocks in some federal prison somewhere. And so I skipped ahead and I looked at the date of my court hearing. And the whole passage of that day's entry was about Job. Specifically, the Bible verse that the thing started with was the last verse in the book of Job, where it talks about how, God restored everything that Job ever had and then some. That the latter days of Job were more blessed than the former days, than his former days. The whole passage was about how Job got everything back that he had lost. And I thought that was kind of ironic that that's the day I'm getting sentenced. And the first encounter that I had with any Christian in the prison system was when these Catholics came in and told me to read the book of Job. And now between those Catholics coming in, telling me to read the book of Job, and being sentenced on the day that this book, the daily devotional that I was reading, talked about how God restored everything that Job lost and then some, there was a lot more in between. That was a 14-month span between one and the other. I just don't remember all of them, and I'll probably talk about this again in more detail if and when I have time to go through that stuff and kind of put it all together. Like, I could scan through those papers and just speed read it, and I could find every coincidence that happened with the book of Job from beginning to end. But they were frequent. So another instance of the book of Job was before I got sentenced. I already knew that book told me that on the day I was sentenced, that day's entry was all about the book of Job and how Job got everything back that he lost. Before I was sentenced, the U.S. Marshals came and picked me up from this jail and transported me to the private prison in Ohio. That's where they would hold people if you plead guilty, and they pretty much assume that you're going to go to federal prison, because they figure, well, we're going to take them to the next step in the process today because we know we're sending this guy up the river. And so it was just the next step in the process to go to this other jail. I don't remember when I arrived at the jail. It was like the middle of the week. Maybe it was a Friday. I don't really know. But on Sunday, the first Sunday I was in there, this place was crazy. But I don't want to go down a side trip with the story. Preacher came in on Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon and said, "Church, church." And so called everybody to church. We all went down to this chapel inside the jail, inside the prison. And it was packed full of people. And this guy was a fiery preacher. This guy was really awesome. I really like this guy. I don't know his name, but I think there are people that I would like to reach out to and just, say thanks. I don't know their names. That's the problem. I would have to dig deep with I'm really good at finding things out and, finding out things through internet searches and whatnot. And I'm pretty sure that I could find all the people that I want to reach out to if I just, did a little bit of homework. But this preacher at this one jail in Ohio, at that federal, whatever it was called, he was a really cool dude. Really cool dude. I liked him a lot. But this is the kind of place where a lot of people in this place come and go. I was only there for a little over a month. Let's see, from the middle of September. I was there for I was there for about 2 months. 2 months sounds about right. And the first Sunday that I was there, he, when I went into the sermon, or when he went into his sermon, it was, he announced, he's like, okay, we're going to spend some time. We're going to start talking about the book of Job. And we're going to spend some time with this. And he gave this whole sermon about the book of Job. And I mean, the whole entire sermon for that Sunday probably went on for an hour. And he probably covered part of the first chapter of the book of Job. And so now by this time, I had already read the Bible from cover to cover, including the book of Job. I had already read parts of the book of Job before that. And so now it's kind of put on me to read the book of Job again. And so I had this study Bible. It was kind of like for Alcoholics Anonymous people. It was some sort of AA, addiction, some sort of study Bible. But a study Bible will show the book that what the scripture that you're reading, and it'll have a whole bunch of notes off to the side explaining the stuff that you're reading in more detail. And so I read the entire book of Job while I was in that prison with all the study notes from this, I think it was called the Recovery Bible or something like that. Some people might know what I'm talking about from that, just from saying that. But I read the entire book of Job over the next 2 months while I was in there. And I'm not kidding. Every single sermon that I went to for that whole 2 months, this guy was on the book of Job, the book of Job. We're going to pick up where we left off on the book of Job, book of Job, book of Job, book of Job. It was like 2 months of the book of Job when I spent 2 months at that prison. And there's more. There's more synchronicity with the book of Job. When I went on to my next couple of places, but it wasn't like I'm just sharing the ones that stand out in my head, but there's so many of them that it would take me another hour or two to tell you all of them. But it was constant references to the book of Job, and the timing of these references was always very ironic. And like, I just happened to be in that prison in Ohio when the pastor said, okay, we're going to start the book of Job. We're going to and we're probably going to be talking about this for a while. And it was the first day he was given a sermon about the book of Job. And so week after week after week after week for 2 months, that's almost 8 Sundays, pretty much every week was about the book of Job, except for 1 week where he was like baptizing people. And so he gave a different sermon to go along with that. But the book of Job was the focus of my 2 months there. And then I went on to this place in New York City where Puff Daddy is staying, and that the guy, the Bitcoin scammer, Ghislaine Maxwell, was in that same place. Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself in a different place. There were 2 in New York City. One was in Manhattan, one's in Brooklyn. I was at the one in Brooklyn. I was there for about a month. I think there was some Book of Job coincidences there with I got to go to like 1 or 2 church services there. I'm surprised that I was even able to do that. That place is so corrupt and so horrible that place is hell on earth. But even in hell on earth, I got to go to church a couple of times. And then when I was in Danbury, there were certainly some Book of Job coincidences here and there. I just don't have like an accurate on this date, on this date, on this date, this happened. I don't have that level of I don't have that level of accuracy when it comes to this. And so, but the book of Job was a very, like, it just kept hitting over and over and over. And so, something, and the reason why this is coming up now is because, after I became homeless until now, I don't really think that the book of Job has popped up. I can't think of any coincidences or times that the book of Job has popped up since the day I got out of prison. I came home from prison. I was thrown out into the street to be homeless. I lost even more stuff. Moved, I end up homeless. I moved to Texas, lost even more stuff. Get to Texas, find out all my camera equipment, all my photography equipment I had gone through after getting out of prison because it was kept safe for me. I packed it all nicely, kept it all organized, went through and just kind of did an inventory, made sure everything was there and made sure everything worked, charged all the batteries, tested everything, looked at all the lenses and everything. Then I go to move to Houston, all my camera equipment got destroyed. It was stored in a moldy basement, like the absolute worst place that it could be possibly stored, for 4 months. $20,000 in camera equipment gone. Lenses, camera bodies, everything just completely fucking destroyed. So I've lost even more. Like that, just saying that, like that emotionally is one of the more traumatic things that happened. Because that's like my art. That's something that I was really like, that's something I wanted to come home to be able to shoot photos again. And now I'm completely dead broke and poor. And my camera equipment is literally just annihilated. And so I have no money to replace it. A camera body and a lens, a professional camera body and a lens, it's like, fuck, $2,000 right there just to get started again. I don't have it. It's not even in the cards. Some of the equipment can possibly be repaired. It's just one of these things I have to go through in a deeper dive and see what can be recovered and see what gets thrown in the trash. But over $20,000 worth of camera. Some of these lenses were given to me by my grandfather when he died. Fucking trashed, full of mold. It hurts so bad to even open up a camera bag and see the damage that was done to my equipment. That is really, like, it hurts. It's pain. It's like painful. It's one of the more painful things I've had to deal with. But like the book of Job, Job lost his children. He lost everything. He lost his whole family was annihilated except for his wife. And his wife turned into a rotten cunt. His wife was like, you smell bad. You're fucking ugly. You lost everything. Why don't you just tell God to go fuck himself and die, you fucking scumbag? Like, what a nice wife Job had. But that's women. That's what would happen. There's nothing new under the sun there. So, side story time. I've told this story. I read a book called The Facemaker. It was written, it's a book about the guy who invented plastic surgery. So when you look at plastic people like Madonna and Joan Rivers and all these people in Hollywood that look like they're in a funeral casket with their plastic faces and their plastic boobies and all that stuff, there's a guy who invented plastic surgery, but he was more noble than making titties big and plastic faces for Hollywood bimbos. His original goal was to help people in World War I. World War I was the first war where because of because people were still fighting old style wars where you just line up in a line and start shooting at each other from across a field, except now they got machine guns and cannons and accurate rifles, and it's like a slaughter fest. The But they hadn't changed their fighting tactics, and that's why they're like, we don't know what to fucking do, we'll just dig some trenches so that we can duck. But in tandem with war being more vicious and more dead, the weapons being more potent than they've ever been, medical technology had reached the point where a lot of people who would have otherwise died in previous wars are coming home alive, but they're missing half of their face. So like, people would, a grenade blows up and a dude's jaw goes flying 50 feet. They can't even find the jaw, and he's just got a row of teeth, and no, like, everything from here down is gone. Just gone. Or they, he'd been missing half of a face here, his eye, everything like gone, but they could patch him up and put some clay in there or whatever and just kind of make, turn him into like, some sort of monster from a horror movie and send him home. And so what was happening is, I don't know if you can hear that. It's my neighbor starting up his Mustang. I get to hear that 5 times a day. But the neighbors, I guess the last person that lived here, the neighbors got him kicked out, got my landlord to evict him because he was being too loud. Yet these motherfuckers are loud all day long. Like, I wish I could get them kicked out of their own house. But they're homeowners. I don't know. It's like a family that lives there. Anyway, back to the story. These soldiers were coming home with half of their face missing. And this plastic surgeon was trying to do the best that he could to patch them up and kind of give them a face back. And the whole book is full of like before and after photos. And it's like the before photo, the after photo is like, oh yeah, that's a big improvement. But it's still like, holy shit, the kids are going to run away screaming if he's walking down the street, even looking like that. But that's, that's the best the guy could do at the time. The technology wasn't there. It wasn't like you could just, Madonna could be 150 years old and she's just going to look like a plastic robot with stretched out lips and, whatever else they do to her. And, or you got these celebrities with the big freaking lips that are, like, I don't even know how you drink a glass of water with lips that big. But, this is this ugly shit, like the Kardashians. Thanks to this guy in World War I trying to help people, now we got the Kardashians, and we've got Madonna, and we've got all these plastic Hollywood people. But these soldiers would come home from the war with their face blown off, and their wives and girlfriends would be like, well, their wives would just divorce them and run away. Like, well, I don't want to be with an ugly man. Fuck that. So these women would they would divorce the guy. If they were married before the war, they were divorced when they came home. If it was a girlfriend, she found out the guy lost half his face, she's already fucking the guy next door. He's going to come home to having no girlfriend. And the problem is, back then, if you didn't volunteer to go fight in the war, then the women all thought you were a pussy. And the women thought, I don't want to date a guy who's a pussy. I don't want to be with a man who's a pussy who won't go over there and fight in the war for me. And so you were basically fucked. Because if you went to fight in this war, there's a 99% chance you're not coming home from that shit. You're either going to get poison gassed, you're going to get shot, or if you do come home, if you're one of the 5% of the fucking people that got to come home, you're coming home with half of your face blown off and maybe missing an arm or something like that. And you're going to come home and your wife's going to be like, well, I can't be with an ugly dude like that. Fuck that. I'm out. I'm going to go fuck this other guy. And so you're basically screwed. If you say, I don't want to go fight this bullshit war so that these rich assholes can make money off of it, then you're a pussy and the women don't want anything to do with you. But if you go and fight the war, you're going to come home with your face blown off and you're missing an arm or a leg or both. And then your woman's going to leave you and no woman's going to want to be with you anyway. So I always say, if you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, fuck, man, keep your face, keep your arms, keep your legs. Fuck going to that war. If your bitch is gonna walk out the door no matter what you do, keep your face. You might be able to use it to pick up another one someday. Maybe a few years after the war's over, the women will forget that you're a pussy and that you didn't go to fight. Or maybe the women will have seen enough guys coming back with their legs blown off and half their face gone, and maybe they'll be, a little bit more understanding about why you didn't volunteer to go have your face blown off. And so you might get some pussy again one of these days. But keep your fucking face. If that's your choice, if your choice is, I don't go to war and none of the women want anything to do with me because I'm a pussy, or I'm going to go to war and come back with one leg and half a face and both of my arms blown off and I'll never get pussy again, well, call me a pussy with a face and legs and an arm and both arms. Because, fuck, dude, that's the better choice in that situation. But that's how Job's wife treated Job. When Job was all covered in boils and his whole body was falling apart and he turned into a leper and he's suffering and he lost everything and his kids died and his animals, his flocks were gone and his house blew down in a tornado or whatever the fuck it was. His wife was like, you stink, you're fucking ugly, why don't you just go curse God and die? Get the fuck out of my life, you fucking loser. That's how she was treating him in the Bible. I'm like, God restored everything Job ever had and then some. I would have been like, can I kick this bitch out of my house and throw her out? Can I go find me a better one of those? Like a younger one, a nice 18-year-old, back in the day, back then, shit. As soon as the women were ready to reproduce, they were getting married off to some rich guy. So, I mean, if Job got rich again, I mean, the Bible doesn't say, but I'd have kicked that bitch to the curb if that's how she was treating me when I was down. Oh, but I got all my money back, and now you want to come back in the house. Oh, and now you want to be nice to me again. Yeah, I see how that goes. Yeah. But this is in the Bible. Go fucking read it. It's right there. She was a piece of shit to him when he was down in the dumps. And it wasn't even his fault. It was because God and the devil were using him to settle a bet. And so, but that's what women are. That's what they are. So, anyway, a lot of stuff. So the reason why the book of Job is the topic of today's video, as I'm 50 minutes into this video now, is because I would say over the last week, out of nowhere, the book of Job keeps popping up again and again and again and again and again and again and again, randomly. And just like a couple of YouTube comments on my videos were talking about the book of Job. But aside from that, a sermon that I was listening to randomly started talking about the book of Job. And then, obviously the algorithm and the YouTube and these other things, they listen to you. They listen to your microphone. They know what you're talking about. They basically know what's on your mind or what you've been discussing. And, so they know. So a lot of Book of Job stuff's popping up in the feeds now. But there's been a lot of, over the last couple of weeks, just off the cuff references to the Book of Job. And they're coming from places that aren't listening and spying on me through my microphone on my phone. just interactions with people where they're randomly mentioning the book of Job. And it's happened over and over again over the last week. And I don't know what it all means, but it's been interesting because over the last couple of weeks, I've been really down in the dumps. It was basically triggered. It started when the ceiling here that's been since covered up, kind of, I'm not even going to talk about the workmanship, but the ceiling, that spray foam that the ceiling was covered in, was falling down in the tiny house and covering the floor on certain mornings. When the mosquito hawks were flying around and bumping into the ceiling, that was enough to knock little pieces of foam down onto the floor. And it was raining this stuff down overnight. And every morning I'm waking up and it looks like it snowed. And I'd have to clean it up every day. And so I tell the landlord, I'm like, this has got to get fixed. And he came over and fixed it, but it took him 2 weekends to do it. And each time he did it, the place was completely trashed. And, of course, when you do this kind of work, it's going to make a mess. So I expected it. But it was difficult. It's been very difficult to get back in any kind of rhythm, because between the 40-mile bicycle commutes with the back-breaking labor in between and all of just the energy drain over the last couple of weeks, and the lack of money, and the fact that I can't find a job anywhere. Like, I'm literally banned from working just about anywhere. Like, I'm never going to be able to get a job again because of a criminal record. Everybody tells you, oh, well, in 7 years that won't, they'd only look back 7 years. What am I supposed to do for 7 fucking years? I gotta go 7 fucking years before my criminal record won't have as much of an impact on searching for a job. Like, what are people supposed to do when they get out of prison? I understand that certain crimes and certain things that people did might make them undesirable candidates to be around other people, myself included. But once again, what are people who have paid their debt to society, who have sat in a prison cell? Like, if you can't even get a basic job somewhere, like, what are you supposed to do? And then somebody in the comments today are going to be like, well, you could drive a truck. Yeah, okay. Number one, I got to go to trucking school. I got to figure out how to pay for that, get my CDL license. Then I got to get a fucking truck. But I can't afford, a $600,000, 18-wheeler. So I'm going to have to find a company to work for to drive trucks for that company. And they're going to do a criminal background check and say, no fucking way, this guy's got a criminal record. And then on top of that, I'm on federal probation for, at least another, I don't know how much longer. 2 more years at the maximum. And I won't be able to, I can't just pick up a load of shit from downtown Houston and drive it to California and back, because I would need permission every time I leave the district. Maybe I could get permission because of a job. I don't know. I mean, it's a possibility, but it's not like people leave that fucking dumbass comment so many times on my channel. Why don't you just go drive a truck? Durr! Like, why don't you go suck a dick? I mean, that would be a lot easier for you to do that than for me to go drive a truck tomorrow. Like, it's so ridiculous, some of the comments. Like you can just walk down the street, get the keys to a fucking big rig, and start driving a truck tomorrow. You can do that tomorrow. So I'm just going to leave that there. The book of Job has been a constant, like, I'm getting hit with all these reminders of the book of Job everywhere I turn around for the last week. I can't even keep like a running list of all the examples, but especially in the last week, in the last 7 days, it's been again and again and again and again and again and again and again. all over the place. I think one of the Jesus Calling entries that I read this week brought up the book of Job. Book of Job and the fact that Job lost everything and got everything back has just been a constant theme this week. And for me, it's just kind of serving as a reminder to me. Now, in the case of Job, it was the devil and God were using Job and basically torturing him to settle a bet. Job didn't do anything wrong. It said he was blameless. The Bible says he was blameless. You know, in my case, I fucked up. I did something stupid and I'm paying the price for that. So it's not the same as Job. You know, in my case, you know, some of you trolls in the comment section will be commenting about how I deserve everything I got. You're an idiot. You deserve it. Go get a job like the rest of us. Oh, boo fucking who. He's got to work. He's got to work a real job like the rest of us. All these fucking dumb douchebag comments that I get on, you know, just about every video. But, you know, they're the minority. I get, you know, the trolls are, you know, I'd say 1 out of 100 comments that people leave are some douchebag troll comments. By and large, the comments that I get are supportive in people that I like to hear from. So it's not. I can handle the trolls. I'm going to call them out because why not? But at the end of the day, I went to federal prison for being an internet troll. So I mean, you know, I'm guilty of it too. I've been an internet troll. I mean, I can't deny that. I can't say I've never done that. So, but like I said, the book of Job has been a constant reminder day after day after day over the last week, in everything from the comments on these videos to the things that pop up in my feeds to the random things that people in real life say as we're interacting with each other. And it's been way more coincidental than just a random coincidence. I would say it's been a daily reminder from God, because of the frequency, the timing, and just the ironic, synchronistic nature of it all. And it's been happening so frequently over the last week that it got me thinking all the way back to how many times this happened when I was in prison. And I'm not going to have time today to dig through my prison archives, my prison journal, to figure out how many times and how many specific things and coincidences and all that kind of stuff with the book of Job. But it is a significant part of my journey that I'm going through right now. And I don't know how this is all going to work out. I don't know what God is going to do to fix my situation. I'm not the only one with a situation that needs fixed right now, too. It's like God is an infinite God. He can bless us all. Like, there's no limit to, like, he can fix my life. He can fix your life. He can fix the lives of pretty much anybody that needs their life fixed. Whether he will or not, that's up to him. I've been seeing a lot of these prosperity gospel preachers on YouTube, and I'm actually starting to, like, there's a button that you can hit that I'm not interested, because they're popping up so frequently in my feed that I'm like, this is like starting to pollute my feed. And they all have the same title. It'll say something like, if you're seeing this, it's because God wants you to watch this. It's like, are you really that desperate for fucking views on YouTube that you're gonna play the God card? Oh, if you see this thumbnail, God wants you to click right here. Fuck you. I think you're going to have an issue when you're face to face with God, that you're using the Lord as clickbait. Like, fuck that. I'm not doing it. I will not put up a fucking video with a thumbnail that says, if you see this, God wants you to click here. Or if you see this, God is about to bless you. If you see this, God is about to give you riches. If you see this, click here. God has a message for you. Like, it's just, there's so many of them. And these people, every now and then I get suckered into clicking on one. I don't know why. There might be something that interests me about it. I'll watch it. I'll be like, yeah. And then I won't watch that person anymore. But I've been seeing these all over the place on YouTube right now. And these people are getting like hundreds of thousands of followers. Like, is that what I should do? Is that, like, should I just become a YouTube prosperity gospel huckster with a bunch of thumbnails that say, if you're reading this, God wants you to hear it. If you see this thumbnail, God says you're about to be rich. God says you will be rich beyond your wildest dreams if you click on this thumbnail. Like, fuck, man. Like, how am I not seeing Joel Osteen in the fucking list with his, you're only, the only reason you're not rich is because you didn't pray enough, or because the only reason you're not rich is because you didn't give me money. Like, come on, man. This is fucking crazy. I'm not doing it. I'm not aligned. I already got enough issues to explain. Already got enough things that I'm going to have to explain to Jesus on the judgment day that I don't want to, I already have enough uncomfortable conversations to have with God on the day of my judgment. I don't need to, I don't need to add to the list. So, just going to go from there. And, so, yeah, I mean, just thinking about it. I don't need to add YouTube charlatan to the list of things that I got to answer for. So, let these people do what they do, I suppose. But they're getting hundreds of thousands of followers, which means they're getting thousands of dollars in ad revenue every month. They're probably making enough money from the ads to not have a job. Just tell everybody every day that if you pray hard enough, Jesus will give you everything you ask for and you'll be rich. And if you're not, it's just because you're not praying enough and you didn't say the right things and whatever. But I don't know, man. All I know is that the book of Job keeps popping up in the synchronistic ways, and it's been happening a lot lately, and over the last week or so, and it's one of the things that's helping me kind of come back down from being so angry and just frustrated about everything that's going on right now. There's been a number of I just feel like I'm behind on everything. I feel like in a lot of ways, I feel like everything's collapsing around me. I know that that's a sign that things might change for the better pretty soon, because it does follow that pattern. When things when you feel like you're in your darkest hour, all of a sudden things turn for the better. I don't know where or how I don't know where it's going to come from. I don't know how it's going to happen, other than it'll come from God when it does. And I won't usually when it comes from Him, I can't explain it any other way other than it was Him. So, I'm just waiting to see what happens. I'm not doing nothing, but I don't know. I'm going to try and step up my game. I shouldn't have to deal with the tiny house being trashed again. I can keep it clean now. I can keep it organized. I don't have to spend an entire day of my life deep cleaning again and again and again and again. So I can just write off the last couple of Sundays. After today, whatever I can accomplish today, I can accomplish. Then I'm going to have to go Friday, Saturday, and Monday on the bicycling and the heavy duty job department but I'll have Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to get other things done, and I should have more energy. So next week, I really feel like next week could be a breakthrough week just in terms of having more energy and time and space to get some things out of the way. The month of March just kind of seems like a bust right now. And, but I don't find it to be a minor coincidence that this book of Job keeps popping up over and over and over again throughout the entire week in multiple ways and in multiple, just weird timings, and just it's kind of just like I said, it just keeps showing up again and again and again. So with that, I'm going to end this video, and I don't know, I'll think of a topic for the next one. I don't know when this will go live on YouTube, but because I've got at least one in between. I've got two. Technically, there's two that you haven't seen yet while I'm recording this one. One of them is a 5-hour long extravaganza that I just have to tack a thumbnail to and hit the button to make it live. The next one after that is where I'm going to start trying to cap these at around an hour or so. And I'm just going to go from there, and I'm going to see how it goes. I know that the title is Tiny Housin, living in a tiny house. And so I think there's an expectation there that I should talk about living in a tiny house more. Because, that's what the title is. Don't judge a book by its title, they say, but I think the title should have something to do with the book. And so, I don't know. I'm going to try. I've got some tripods out in the tiny house. I can clamp a couple of cameras down at once and film things. I just don't know what to really talk about. I've got, just tiny house stuff. I'll figure it out, and so I'm going to try to make that. I'm trying to make that into a more of a transition. And I know a lot of you have wanted to hear like a full story about my experience with leading up to the arrest, after the arrest, etc. I'm getting there. It's just that I don't have all day to sit and tinker with video and put stuff on YouTube and edit and do all the things. A lot of these people that do a much better job on YouTube are making money off of it to the point where they don't have to go to a shitty job and spend, even I count my time, even last week and this week, every single week after week after week after week ever since September. When I look at my time tracking, I track all my time that I spend being productive, including sitting here on talking to you in this video. The bakery is always the largest time suck of my week, and it's leaps and bounds more time than anything else. So even though I'm logging 70 to 80 hours a week of being productive, most of that, more than half, in fact 2/3 of that, ends up being the bakery a lot of times. Or this week it would be the bakery and the job search took up a lot of time. But even if I'm only working 3 days, that's 10, 20, 30, 3, 6, 9, 39. 3 days of going to the bakery is almost 40 hours. And if I log 70 hours in a week, that only leaves me with 30 hours. So if 40 of those hours are dealing, not just working at the bakery, but riding a bicycle to and from the bakery and getting ready to ride a bicycle to and from the bakery, which takes a bunch of time, you're looking at about, I'm saying 13 hours of my day are gone every time I go to the bakery. Plus that's a day that nothing else will get done on the day that I have to do that. If I have to ride 40 miles, work an 8-hour physical job, come back, 13 hours from beginning to end, there's no, I have enough energy to Maybe there's a 50-50 chance I got enough energy to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, eat that, and pass out, and maybe shoot a video segment. Then I have 30 hours out of the 70. So, I'm working a 70-hour week. But then after the 40 hours of dealing with making $100, I put 40 hours in to make a couple $100. And then I've got 30 hours left to do all the other things. All the other things that are on my list. And so that's a cycle that's hard to break. I need to be spending 50 hours on things that are profitable and much less time on a side job. I need a side job where I can work 20 to 25 hours with a 10-minute walk to get there. That would be a significant. I could make the same amount of money putting in 25 physical hours than that currently takes me 40 hours of my time every week. If I could just find a job that's walking distance from here. And I'm not finding them, but it isn't going to stop me from filling out applications, but I'm getting to the point where the closest one, where I've applied to all the ones that are closest to me. So now I've got to branch out and I've got to go, well, all the ones within 1 mile I've applied to. Now I've got to go, okay, now all the ones within 2 miles. And right now, the only job interview, the only actual interview I had that's still open is 18 miles away. So instead of 21 miles, it's an 18-mile ride. But it takes longer to do the ride, mostly because of all the traffic lights involved. It took longer to go down to that job interview. And granted, I wasn't trying to go as fast as I possibly could. I was trying to conserve my energy a little bit and just chill and ride at a chillax pace. But it took longer to get down to that 18-mile job than it takes to get to my 21-mile job, just because of the number of traffic lights and the amount of times I have to stop. Not a big deal. The difference in time is very negligible. It's not a huge difference, but it's just frustrating because there's literally 200 places I could possibly get a job within a couple of miles of where I live right now. And granted, I have not applied to 200 of these, so, apply to 10 more. I'll try to apply to 10 more in the next week, because that's all I can plan on, because some of them, you start filling out a job application, it takes an hour and a half to do one. Sometimes it takes 5 minutes. You don't really know what you're getting into until you hit that. You got to plan on it taking at least an hour. If it takes 5 minutes, you can go, oh, that was cool. All right, off to the next one. But sometimes you sit down for 2 hours and you get one application out the door. And so I'm going to make it a goal to do 10 more of those and just do 10 at a time. Like, my goal is 10 at a time. Until I find something, until something shakes loose. And hope, or I could find a remote job, or who knows. There's so many possibilities, but I can tell you I'm not the only one going through this desert right now. Wandering the desert trying to find water. A good friend of mine and I had a talk yesterday for about half an hour. I would say it was about a half-hour conversation over the phone. And he's feeling the exact same way I am right now. Totally different situation, totally different circumstances. But this guy, he also feels like he's just wandering the desert looking for water. And all the things that he knows he's supposed to be doing right now, he never has time to do, because he's constantly running around doing all the things that he has to do to survive. And he's in a completely different place than I am, financially, criminal record wise, You know, so many different ways I'm not going to say better off than me, because that's not an accurate way to put it. I don't think, if you ever think that there's somebody out there that you would love to trade places with, I guarantee you once you've done it, you'd want to go back to being yourself again, because all you're doing is trading one set of problems for another. You think, oh, that I want to be that person. You be that person for a day and you'll come screaming. You'll be like, let me out, let me out. I want to go back. I want to go back. So that's the point I'm making. There are so many people that I communicate with right now who all simultaneously feel like they're just wandering the desert looking for a drink of water. And I don't know. I think, well, a lot of it has to do with this creepy old child molesting dickhead that we had pretending to be president for 4 years, and the Democrats who pretty much drove this country straight into the fucking ground and destroyed it. Our economy is in shambles. Everything is just complete. You can't expect this to be fixed overnight. I've seen that the egg prices are coming down. I've noticed it. I haven't really bought eggs. I haven't. This is the cooking situation is just something I'm easing into right now. I took I've had a 2.5 year break from being a cook, other than cooking in a prison for 400 people, which is totally different. That's like putting slop in a bucket and scooping it out onto a tray. That's not cooking. So I don't know. Something's got to break. Something's got to break loose. Something's got to happen. I may have to make things happen, or take God's wait. Sometimes God's just waiting me for take a step in the right direction. I hope that He tells me what direction to go. I hope He shows me how to get all the things done. I hope He can give me strength and energy to accomplish the things, whatever it is He wants me to accomplish. I'm completely right. The analogy of wandering the desert looking for a drink of water is very accurate right now, and I've heard many people say this to me over the last couple of weeks, and it's kind of what's the word? I know I'm not alone. I know I'm not alone with this. A lot of you people watching right now, there's been a lot of comments on some of these videos that a lot of you are in the same bucket as me, wandering the desert looking for a drink, not knowing what to do, not knowing where to go. So I'm complaining. Like I said, in the book of Job complains a lot. Read it. It's part of the reason why I couldn't sit down and read. The first time I read the book of Job, I couldn't listen to this guy bitch and moan for 3 chapters at a time. So, of course, but it's a good place to go when you've lost everything, because God can restore everything that you've lost, and it's not just Job. Joseph was, his brothers played a prank on him, threw him down a well, and he ended up going into slavery, and then he spent like 10 to 12 years in prison, and then he became the second most powerful man in Egypt, and all of his brothers were starving when the famine came, and he was the one who was able to feed all of his brothers when they showed up begging for food in Egypt. Daniel, same thing. He was oppressed and lost everything and completely just beaten down to nothing. And Nebuchadnezzar lifted him up, and he became an important person, and a person with means, and he, he's one of the more important people in the Bible. And I know some of the details, but there are lots of people in the Bible who hit rock bottom and then are lifted back up. from rock bottom. So it's possible. And I feel like the signs that he gives me tell me over and over again to just be patient. Things are going to work out better than you can imagine, but it's going to be on my time, not your time. And when that time, how long, I don't know. But I look at it like I've got a 15-year-old son now who I haven't seen since he was 12. I've seen my son one fucking time since he was 12 years old, and now he's 15. And in a few years, he's going to be old enough to go out on his own. And am I supposed to never have another moment with my own son between now and when he's an adult? I don't know. It's up to God at this point. There's nothing I can do about it. I keep trying to push forward, but at the same time, it's like, God's gonna have to remove some of the stumbling blocks, and God's gonna have to open some doors that are currently locked in order for me to get from point A to Z. And so I'm just gonna leave it at that. I'm an hour and 20 minutes in. That's enough for a video. And I got to get going. I got to do something productive. I've got a list to follow and check off. So more than I can accomplish in a day, but that's fine. As soon as I sit down and start checking things off of that list, every time I put a check mark on that list, I feel better and I feel like I did something useful. So I'm going to get to that, and I'll talk to you later. Peace out.